Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are literally hacking your brain's memory mechanisms so that studying and actually retaining all that information feels, well, almost unfair. If you're completely exhausted from reading a page and immediately forgetting it, you are in the exact right place. We're going to break down the cognitive science of memory and uncover how your brain is biologically wired to process data. Let's just dive right in.
Okay, you know the feeling, right? You're staring at a page, you read the exact same sentence maybe 5 times, and then 2 hours later, your brain just deletes it, like it never even existed. It is incredibly frustrating. But here's the absolute secret to all of this. Forgetting is actually a survival feature. From an evolutionary standpoint, if you remembered every single tiny detail of your day, your brain would crash. It's actively, aggressively filtering the world around you.
And that brings us to a really foundational premise we have to get out of the way. Memory is not about intelligence. Having a quote-unquote good memory isn't about having a superior brain or just being naturally gifted. Actually, your brain is a deletion machine. It is constantly asking one simple question of all the input you give it. Is this important enough to keep? If you don't give it a compelling reason, the answer is a hard no. And poof, the information disappears. So our goal here isn't to be smarter. Our goal is to convince the brain that what we're looking at actually matters. All right, so let's get into section 1, the brain's deletion protocol. Here is exactly what most of us have been taught to do since we were kids. We reread our notes, we highlight entire pages in neon yellow until the book practically glows, and we watch endless lectures on a loop. And we do these things because, let's be honest, they feel super productive. But they are entirely passive. They completely fail because passive input does absolutely nothing to convince your brain that the information matters. The data goes in, and your deletion protocol just wipes it right out. Moving right along to section 2, reconstruction over recognition. We need to talk about active recall. Look, memory doesn't work like dragging and dropping a file onto a computer hard drive. It's built through active reconstruction. You strengthen information when you physically force your brain to retrieve it, not when you just sit back and receive it. It's that tiny, sometimes really uncomfortable struggle of forcing the retrieval that actually builds those strong memory pathways. Basically, you gotta make the brain sweat a little bit. Most students will read a page, get that warm, fuzzy feeling, and say, yeah, that feels familiar, and then just move on. But guys, that is just recognition. Top performers do something fundamentally different. They read the page, they physically close their notes, and they force their brain to retrieve what they just read. And here's the kicker. Even if you only remember like 20% of it, the difficulty you experience during that recall is a massive indicator that your brain is building pathways. It's adapting, not failing. Let's jump into section 3, the blurting method. Now we're getting to the highly tactical stuff. Let's walk through this method because honestly, this is where the magic happens. Step 1. You study a topic normally for about 20 to 30 minutes. Step 2, close absolutely everything. Hide your books, close your browser tabs, no cheating. Step 3, take a blank sheet of paper and just write down everything you remember. Make it messy, make it incomplete, just force that retrieval. Step 4, open your notes back up, compare what you missed, and correct it. Your brain intensely notices its own mistakes, meaning that corrected information is going to stick dramatically faster. Next up, section 4, hooks, emotion, and context. So your brain absolutely hates random isolated facts. Without context, they die quickly. What your brain actually loves are patterns. If you try to memorize something like ATP is the energy currency of the cell, just as an isolated fact, it's going to slip right away. But if you connect it into a pattern, like ATP equals the battery pack for cellular work, you instantly give your brain meaning. Meaning creates memory hooks. The more hooks you have, whether that's through stories, analogies, or even just weird, quirky visuals, the faster you'll recall it later. Stop asking how to repeat things and start asking how to connect them. Another incredible memory hook is emotion. Think about it. It's the reason you remember a horribly embarrassing moment from 5 years ago with crystal clarity, but you have zero clue what you had for lunch yesterday. Emotion explicitly tells the brain, hey, this matters. So you need to manufacture emotion while you study. Teach the concept dramatically to an invisible audience in your room. Set an urgency timer to create a mini challenge. Play some intense cinematic focus music. Visualize yourself crushing the exam. Emotion increases attention. Attention increases deep encoding, and encoding equals memory. Honestly, if you're bored, your retention is just being destroyed. And speaking of attention, I want you to remember this magic number. 25. You absolutely must aggressively protect the first 25 minutes of your study session from all notifications. No quick phone checks, no I'm just going to reply to this one text, no multitasking. Why? Because your brain attaches memory to context. If a notification interrupts you every 3 minutes, your brain is actually learning distraction, and you never even enter deep encoding mode. Give yourself 25 minutes of totally unbroken focus to just allow those pathways to form.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Section 5, the time and sleep mechanics.
Listen, if there is literally one single concept you take away from this entire explainer, it needs to be spaced repetition. Researchers have found that without review, your memory drops off a cliff within the first 24 hours. Your brain basically labels the data as temporary and just dumps it in the trash. Spaced repetition is the ultimate cure to this. It's the process of reviewing information right before your brain is about to forget it. Not too early, and definitely not too late. A simple spaced repetition schedule goes kind of like this. You learn the material on day 1, then do a quick review on day 2, then day 4, day 7, and day 14. Notice how the gaps between the days are getting wider? Each time you review, the session itself actually becomes shorter, but the memory becomes deeply anchored. Your brain respects repetition over time, not repetition in a state of absolute panic. This is exactly why cramming the night before feels productive in the moment, but the information completely vanishes the very next day.
Let's move to another temporal strategy, a really cool advanced trick called interleaving. Most of us will sit down and study 4 straight hours of math, and then maybe 4 straight hours of biology. But your brain actually adapts far better with controlled switching. For example, do 45 minutes of math, then switch to biology, then chemistry. Why does this work? Because switching forces your brain to constantly re-engage and ask itself, wait, what strategy do I use here? That extra mental effort strengthens discrimination and recall, which is going to give you a massive advantage when test day actually rolls around.
And then there's sleep. I really cannot emphasize this enough. Sleep is neurological reinforcement. Actually, scratch that. It's the whole shebang. You don't fully memorize things while you're sitting at your desk studying. Your brain finalizes that memory during deep sleep. It replays the important information and physically transfers it into long-term storage. So pulling an all-nighter? That is a catastrophic, completely counterproductive sacrifice. You are literally robbing yourself of the exact physiological process that stabilizes what you just learned. Study the hard stuff, then go to sleep, and let your brain do the heavy lifting for you.
Which brings us to our final section, section 6, measure recall, not time. We live in a world that absolutely loves to reward passive metrics. We brag about hours studied, or how many pages we highlighted, or how many lectures we binge-watched. But as we've learned, real memory is reconstruction. You need to transition your mindset to active metrics. What can you actually recall with the book closed? Or better yet, what can you explain simply to a 5-year-old? This is famously known as the Feynman technique. When you start measuring your success by your ability to teach a concept simply from memory without leaning on any fancy jargon, you aren't just reading anymore. You are building an unfair advantage.
So, let me leave you with this final, provocative question. I want you to look at your current study habits right now and ask yourself honestly, what is actually going to survive in your brain after 3 days? If you aren't forcing retrieval, spacing out your repetition, and viciously protecting your sleep, the answer might be, well, very little. But hey, now you have the actual mechanics. It's time to put these cheat codes to work. Thanks so much for joining me in this explainer. Now go build those pathways.